All right, Lindsey Williams, 18 months ago or longer, he comes on and says it's going to go from 150 to below 50 for at least a year. People laughed at him. But I know he has these sources. I know he's been accurate in the past. Here he is with even more information. Lindsey, before we finish up with the timeline and go to calls, and I want to hurry here because I do want to get to calls. We appreciate you coming on. We may even do another part next week if you can do it. Could he be planting disinfo on you, giving you good info a year and a half ago, now to give you bad info? Could he be mistaken, and could the establishment know he's leaking info and have made him a honeypot with bad info for you now? How do you respond to that?
At 85 years of age, facing the graveyard, nearly died last winter. Would you want to lie to a chaplain who is probably the only man of his kind that you ever met? In 35 years' time, these people, and there's more than one involved in this. I cross-reference, by the way. You said early in the program, I know who these people are. Well, you and Dr. Stan Monteith do, because one of them, Dr. Stan Monteith, contacted one time. And I cross-reference. I'll call one, talk with him. I'll call another one, talk with him. For 35 years, he has never lied to me yet. And I've never made a wrong prediction based on what he said in 35 years. When he said,
well, I mean, when did you write your Energy Non-Crisis? That was 20-something years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was actually about 25 years ago. So,
well, I mean, the issue is, in that book, you say there's really giant reserves of sweet and near sweet crude. You list the areas, and then decades later, it's come out mainstream news here and there that you were telling the truth, and they've got agreements not to ship that oil with the Arabs. But regardless, I believe you're credible. I know you're credible. I just wanted to ask that question because I've been asked that. Quickly, finish the timeline. I want to go to calls. Okay, let's go to a timeline here. First of all, bank takeovers. Watch out. I was told that within 2 years, nearly everyone will be working for the federal government. They want to take over every bank. Nearly every weekend, you'll see 5-10 banks being taken over. They'll do it in the Northeast this weekend, Southwest next weekend. They don't want you to know and realize what's happening. They're going to narrow it down to 9 major banks. Those will be so bailed out by the government that everybody that works for a bank, including the CEOs, will be employees of the federal government within 2 years. Watch the number of bankruptcies. You're going to see them increase drastically when it gets to the point that it is literally absurd. And you'll see it in the newspapers every weekend, how many took place in your city or your state. Watch it, because toward the end, you will see this get to a point where you'll recognize where their timeline is. Access to safety deposit boxes. Oh, folks, please, if you buy that gold, don't put it in your safety deposit box. You've got to hear what I have to say about that and what he did later. Wait a minute. He said they're going to raid the safety deposit boxes.
Movies in Hollywood, what they produce, watch it. They are going to tell you what they're doing out of the Hollywood movie. I don't like the Hollywood movies. They're perverse.
He said that. He said they're predictive programming or conditioning us or preparing us.
Yeah, they're going to tell you everything they're going to do in advance through the movies that are coming out of Hollywood. And then watch the pace of inflation. This is one of the greatest timelines you can possibly have. When you see inflation begin to escalate extremely rapidly, this is it. Now, you saw it. You saw it within the past few days. The standard currency of the world is crude oil. You'll remember I've used that expression many times over the past few years. Within 2 years, he said, there are going to be some major things in relation to this. OPEC, just a few days ago, said, oil-producing countries of the world, we are not going to use the American dollar anymore. It is not the reserve currency of the world any longer. And whenever you, listen, all original wealth comes out of the ground. Oil comes out of the ground. Gold comes out of the ground.
Food.
They know where original wealth is. And when you begin to see other currencies used beside the American dollar, which they're already doing it, and it will totally destroy the value of the American dollar. It is on the way out. Within 2 years, he said it will be dead. We have a $9 trillion national debt. Now that the countries of the world do not need the dollar anymore for the sale and trade of crude oil, they are getting rid of it every way they possibly can. Because of this, there will be nobody out there buying the interest on the national debt of $9 trillion. Because of that, you are going to see a complete collapse of the American dollar. Folks, if you are in paper, get out. you must take note from what this man said. He said our currency is gold and silver, and you are going to just watch that timeline of what OPEC does, what happens to oil, and what takes place with crude oil. And Alex, I've got more here, but how far do you want us to go?
Lindsey, just continue.
Okay. The national debt. I got to go back to this for a moment. We have a $9 trillion national debt approximately. Of course, it's much higher than that, but that's what they admit to. It's not the debt that matters. And we're adding to that $1.5 trillion this year. The debt is not the important part. The important part is someone must pay the interest on the national debt. Now, he went into this in detail. I mean, and you've got to please note, someone must buy the interest on the national debt. It's bought by the Treasury of the United States of America, issuing T-bills and securities. For as long as anyone is known, the American dollar has been the reserve currency of the world. Now, when nations do not any longer use the American dollar for the sale and trade of crude oil, they have no need for it. As a result, they don't come in and buy our Treasury bonds. And he said, this man, he went into this in detail. He said the Federal Reserve now is beginning to buy T-bills and the securities that the Treasury of the United States of America is issuing every few weeks. He said this cannot go on.
That's called monetizing the debt. That's called monetizing the debt. That's what Argentina did. That's what Zimbabwe has done. That's what the Weimar Republic back in the 1930s in Germany did.
Yes, he said outright, this is going to collapse the dollar. He said this cannot go on. As soon as the nations become aware of what's happening, they will quit showing up altogether for the issues of the T-bills. And at that point, watch your newspapers. See how many people come to the Treasury auctions every few days and buy our T-bills. And when you see none of the nations showing up, you know it is at the verge of the point that the dollar will totally collapse.
And already, as the New York Times and Bloomberg reported earlier this week, the end of the dollar is the world reserve currency. Different headlines with that same terms, different variants of it. They said that Europe, the Arabs, Asia, China, Japan, they have 62 to 65, depending on which nation. Gave different numbers between 62, 63, 64, 65. One of them had 66%. I read the numbers on air. Percentage of their reserves are in dollars. But in the last 2 years, they've been slowly buying a basket of currencies, mainly the euro, moving away. Now, in the last 2 weeks, for the first time, they've switched to majority foreign currencies. And within 2 weeks, they didn't just go to majority foreign currency, leaving the dollar. They went 60+% lopsided. They still have a majority in dollars, but they're now moving away. Every time they go and buy, every week, let's say they buy, let's say Japan buys $30 billion worth of U.S. currency or of currencies. Now they're only buying $13 billion of that $30 billion. And that's just a raw random number I'm throwing out. So they now have left the dollar. They're now leaving it. It's not a question of when's it coming. The long death has begun. Did he say it'd be fast or slow?
Well, he said it's going to be over a period of their timeline. Their timeline is 2 years. They don't want to make it too fast because too many Americans would wake up to what they're doing, and the last thing they want is what you... Listen, Alex, everything you say in your new your new DVD, oh my goodness, folks, this is the death of the elite. If Alex could only get that to every single American in this country and make them believe it, he said, within 2 years, now I'm quoting this all word for word to the best that I could write it down as fast as I could. You notice how fast I'm talking to, trying to get it out today. Within 2 years, you will be so broke, you will not be able to rebel. This is startling. Folks, they have a plan. They think that they have it made. They think that there's nothing in the world you and I can do about it.
Economic warfare. I mean, they admit they do this to make you so poor you can't resist, just like the Argentinian top economist I had on. It's in their own documents. They did that there. They were first world.
Yeah, they have a timeline, and their timeline now is definite. And this is the first time he's ever given me his timeline. But he kept on using the expression, and I beg of you, I'm doing the same thing. He kept using the expression over and over and over in our conversation, which was quite lengthy. He said 2 years, 2 years, 2 years.
Okay, Lindsey,
2 years
Lindsey,
more.
I want to do something. How many other points in the timeline do you have?
Oh, I've got a few here, Alex, but we'll
Listen, next week we'll have you back on for another hour if you can do it, and we'll detail them more. But for now, just mention the last few, and let's go to calls.
Okay. First of all, everything that happened to Iceland is going to be happening to the United States of America. If you want to know exactly what's going to take place in this country, look at what happened to Iceland. And basically, you have the basics of what he said. So let's take some phone calls, Alex.
Well, no. I mean, I don't want to stop you, but I do want to get the wild card of calls. Are there any other points you need to hit?